Everyone. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm super excited to hear from him. We have Brent Phillips, and Brent has a very interesting background with degrees in engineering, I believe it is, if I remember correctly, Brent from MIT. And he has created the best of the best from his own personal experience, along with what he's learned from incredible systems and masters to create the awakening dynamic system and the patent pending formula for miracles. So, Brent, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you here today.
Oh, excited to be here. This is great.
So, Brent, did I remember that correctly? Your degree is in engineering,
Yep.
2 degrees in
Yep.
engineering
Two
from
and a half,
MIT.
actually. I am proud to think of myself as an overeducated dropout because
I love it.
I did drop out of the PhD program at MIT. So,
So, how on earth did you get on this? Well, I should say, so today is all about mastering the inner game of
yes.
digital marketing, network marketing, affiliate marketing, whatever it is for you. It's all about mastering the inner game of your business. So, Brett, how did you go from being an engineer, which we don't tend to generally connect with spiritual things,
Yep.
to this whole inner game and spirituality?
Well, it's a very long story short. Growing up, I was your typical kind of nerdy kid. I loved Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. And my big passion was video games. I really wanted to be a video game developer. And then when I was in college at MIT, I discovered the internet and I was just like mind blown, right? I'm like, wow, specifically because it created a whole new kind of immersive online game. What today we call MOGs, multiplayer online games. But that was my passion and my baby. And when I was in grad school, I became a specialist in internet networking. And when the internet boom hit, I'm like, hey, this is my gold rush. So I left MIT, moved to California, recruited my lifelong best friend, and we started tech companies. And long story short, we had a lot of success at first. I remember back in March 1995, we were the first company ever to be awarded the website for the Sony PlayStation. So that was our first project. We did a lot of cool stuff, but ultimately that led to the game company where I wanted to create this new kind of video game. And what today we call a MOG, massively multiplayer online game. And we got funding and got a team and created this really world-changing game, but it was 10 years ahead of its time. So there wasn't an audience for that kind of game yet. It was too early. And I was bootstrapping not one but two tech startups. And eventually I had a massive health crisis, terrible chronic pain, stiffness. I had all sorts of bursitis and tendonitis and carpal tunnel syndrome and all these syndromes and itises and things. And long story short, I was in so much pain I could hardly move. And after a couple of
Were
years of
you at
physical,
that point, Brent, if you don't mind me asking?
yeah.
How old were you when you were
At
in
that
all this
point,
pain?
it got really bad around when I turned 27. So it's not like it came on instantly, but it came on over maybe 6 months, a year, and just got worse and worse and worse. And
27 years old. That's
yeah,
young,
I
right?
was
That's
very young,
young.
exactly, yes. And I did physical therapy and all these things, but nothing helped. And I remember it was a couple months after I turned 27, I finally got an appointment to see the head doctor at the Curl and Joe Physical Therapy Clinic. And I'm like, wow, this guy's like the best of the best. He'll know what to do. And I remember going, I was so excited to see him. What are we going to do? Is it surgery? Is it rehab? Is it a device? I was like, let's fix this. And he was just like, well, I'm sorry, son, nothing to do here. We can never help you. You'll always be in pain. You'll never be able to work. And I was like, what? And that was really the day that the door slammed shut in my face. That the doctor literally said, I'm sorry, we can't help you. And I went to tell my best friend. And I figured he'd be all hang in there. Instead, he was like, no, well, you can't work anymore. Sorry, you have no place here. So I got fired from the companies I had founded. And I learned later it was because he had been secretly dating the woman I was crazy in love with. So it was, you know, who would have thought affairs of the heart, right? And long story short, I was devastated. I was left living with, some pretty awful chronic pain, being told there's nothing anyone can do about it, that I'd never be able to work again. And, I'd never have a chance at a normal life. And I was devastated. And long story
Be.
short, it was, truly, as they call, a dark night of the soul. It really seemed like everything was over. And I've got into positive thinking for a little while. And, today we call it the law of attraction, jumping around, mastermind's going to turn my life around. And we all know it doesn't really work, right? So did that for a while, got into alternative medicine. I thought, hey, maybe acupuncture, herbs, or homeopathy, so years, nothing could help me. It was so frustrating. And eventually I had a experimental treatment on my arm and it backfired. And I woke up from an operation with my right arm paralyzed. And that was kind of the rock bottom. And I mentioned that because that's what led me to a woman. Her name was Terry O'Connell. And she had been a very successful in finance and had gotten sick and almost died. And found this process of energy healing involving something with theta brain waves and the subconscious and checking the strength of your muscles. And it was all very interesting, but I'm like, that's a little woo-woo, right? Let's take the things that are real here. And so I didn't go see her. And so for 6 months, my arm's paralyzed. I'm going to therapy and machines and all this, trying to get it to move. And, my Aunt Lauren will call me, hey, Brent, did you see Terry? No. Stop bothering me. Nothing can help me, right? Finally, she's like, okay, Brent, go see Terry. And if her healing can't help you, I'll take you out to dinner anywhere in the city you want. I was like, okay. So I went to see her. And she talked to me again about
Okay.
the subconscious, the power of the power of what's inside of us, childhood traumas, all this. And it was very interesting. She asked me a lot of questions. And I'm like, this is interesting, but I'm not really here to talk about my feelings, right? I'm here because I'm in pain and I can't work and my life's over, right? As much as I like to talk about what happened when I was 7, it's not that important. Didn't seem relevant. But anyhow, we did this process for about an hour. And she said, we're going to fix your arm now. And I'm like, yeah, lady, you in what army, right? And she kind of closed her eyes and went into a trance. And about 30 seconds later, there was this loud crack and pop in my elbow. And bingo, I could move my arm. And so that was really a life-changing miracle for me. Not so much that I got my arm to move, but that, oh my God, this energy thing is real. There is such a thing as mind power. I was like, just blew my mind, right? And I just want to connect that to what we're here to talk about. That when I was growing up, I was into swords and sorcery and outer space and fantasy and such, right? I wanted magic and miracles to be real. And then I have this experience, so I'm like, oh my God, miracles can actually happen. So that's what got me into this stuff, where I discovered the inner game, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But I want to be honest, just so I don't want anyone to take away the wrong idea. It's not like my life became perfect in an hour. I was still a wreck. I was still in pain. I was still disabled. I still had depression and autism and anxiety and arthritis and all these things. The one thing that did shift is I could move my arm again, but that was temporary. None of the chronic stuff healed in an hour. That took a lot more work and time.
Yeah.
So it's not like an hour later, my life is perfect. No, it would be a good movie, right? If it was a Lifetime movie, that's how it would end.
Yeah.
But in real life, no. But what I discovered was really, when I was younger, I was kind of arrogant. I thought I had it all figured out, that there's this world out there and there's laws of physics and rational behavior, and it can all be kind of programmed. And I really thought that, all this inner game and, the idea of mind power or focus or just seemed like a bunch of woo woo. And then I experienced this. I'm like, okay, maybe it's not. And what I've discovered is, before I would have thought when I have my startups, the success of the company doesn't have anything to do with the people. It's about your ideas, right? It's about how good your code is. It's about how good your business plan is, all the outer stuff. And that's why my life ran off a ditch, because I was so focused on the outer game, I didn't see the inner game at all. Like
Yeah.
it's all about your money and your factory or your employees or your knowledge or your patent, all this very external oriented. And the reason I'm here is, having been in this world of energy healing, self-improvement, there's obviously a lot of crossover with network marketing. I myself have been involved in a semi-serious way in at least a half a dozen different network marketing ventures over time, right? Usually health and nutrition
Okay.
related. And, really what I want to offer is what I discovered about life is pretty simple. And I kind of knew this when I was in graduate school, because I remember there was a time during the summer, and anyone's ever lived in Boston during the summer, Oh my gosh, it's brutal, right? And
Humidity plus, plus, plus,
yeah,
right?
you'll have
Yep.
maybe 5, 10, 15 days in the summer where it's just like 97 degrees and 100% humidity, and you just can't get comfortable no matter what you do, right? And what would happen is on those brutal summer days, grad students, we couldn't afford air conditioning. Are you kidding? Even if we had it, we couldn't afford to run it. And so the only place on campus we could go where there was air conditioning 24/7 was the computer rooms. And being in the computer science lab, I had the key to go right in there. So you go in the hot summer nights, and there'd be like, a sea of grad students in sleeping bags with pillows and like novels, right? And so I'm there, like, relaxed. I'm like, oh, thank God I can fall asleep right in the cool. And I realized, wow, people are just like computers, aren't we? Your body is, in a sense, the hardware, and the subconscious mind is the software. And it's funny, I realized this, I just didn't know what to do with it. And then years later, I have this experience with Terry where my elbow heals. I'm like, oh my God, what she did was basically showing me how to do software engineering on the human. That the human subconscious is like, it isn't like, it is code.
So now, hindsight being 2020, of course, you were talking about how you thought you had it all figured out and,
Yep.
it was all these other things. So now, would you say that the inner game, the subconscious mind, uh, and everything related, everything you've experienced, there are also laws
Oh yeah.
that govern that? Okay.
And
Yep.
I'd say, if anything, they're the more important one to focus on.
Yes,
That
exactly.
most people run their businesses totally backwards, and I did for a long time too. You think it's about creating a really good product or a service or a good brochure. It's like, no, it's ultimately about this web of subtle human connections. That's what drives everything. And so, yes, did you have to have some kind of good idea or service or efficiency or ability? Of course. But how you present that to the world is everything.
So
And
it's
so
not
it's
writing the perfect email even,
right,
or, the perfect social media post or doing the
right.
perfect reel or, short or whatever. But
Yep.
it's
It,
all about what's going on behind the
yes, it's
scenes
all
and the
about the
energy of it.
inside. And
Yeah.
so the thing I'll want to share with everyone is, hey, Brent, if I was new in network marketing, which I did my first network marketing, what, about the year 2000, what is it I wish someone had told me? And so there's two things I want to share right now. Um, one, it'll be a little longer to explain. The other one, remind me before the end. It's very simple. So what do I wish I had known? This idea, what we call the subconscious financial thermostat. It's a really powerful metaphor for understanding what's really happening with your business. Why is it that two people can be offering almost an identical product or service and they have vastly different results? How crazy is that? Happens all the time, right? There's some people that just seem to do well no matter what you put them into, and others that just struggle and wander and struggle and wander and never really get ahead. And so it comes from this idea that what ultimately governs your income and your lifestyle is not your education or your talent or your skill or your knowledge or even who you know or where you live or the market you're in. What I will offer is those are all delivery vehicles. They're not the source. The source of it is you. It is your mind, how you interact with the world around you. How do you present physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally? Because that drives everything. And we call it the thermostat because there's this phenomena many people have heard about. You've all heard about this. Lottery winners, professional athletes. There's a group of people that make a huge amount of money very quickly. And almost all of them tend to lose it. Is that a coincidence? Of course not. They say what, 60 to 80% of lottery winners lose all their money in 5 years. This actually happens. Professional athletes, most of them go bankrupt within 5 years of retirement. But they had ridiculous salaries. On the low end, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? On the high end, millions. So why is it that people that make all this money very quickly and easily lose it all? Well, it's simple. We have a setting inside us that determines what our life will be like. That This subconscious mind holds a program that runs every area of your life. Your physical health is created from a program in the subconscious. Your emotional health, your social life, your sense of purpose, your self-confidence, your likes and dislikes, your passions and desires, your dreams and fears. It's all programmed inside. And so ultimately, it doesn't really matter what you do. You'll end up making about the same amount of money. Why? We're governed by this thermostat. It kind of holds your income and net worth within a range. And if you get outside of what you're programmed for, the universe will push you back to the middle. This is why lottery winners tend to lose their money, as do many young star athletes and musicians. But at the same time, many of us have also experienced a disaster strikes in your life and somehow you make it. Somehow you make it through each day. You keep putting one in front of the
Brent
other,
is,
right?
yeah, the big question is, how do you change it, right? How
Yes.
do you change that financial thermostat? How do you
Mm-hmm.
change that health thermostat? Whatever.
That's exactly. And that's why it's so funny. My background's in software, because that's exactly what I learned is what controls your life is the software. That it doesn't matter really as much what you do. You can be selling a network marketing product. You can be working at McDonald's. You can be working at a freaking hedge fund. You could be a corporate lawyer. It doesn't really matter. Now, it matters a little in the short term, but over the long run, it all comes out in the wash, as they say. It all evens out over time. That over time, you'll have wins and losses, and you'll see the kind of the line in the middle. That's your subconscious thermostat. And all the things we think of as being key to our prosperity, including your own personality, but your assets, right? People you know, your software, opportunities within the industry, all that, they're delivery vehicles. They're just a way to bring you the money that you're creating on the inside. And so that's why I say for most people, depending on where you're focused, if you're serious about building your business, you need to give attention to the outer game and the inner game. So of course they matter, right? If you're selling some vitamin juice and you don't really know a dang thing about vitamins or what's special about the juice, you're not going to go that far, right? You got to know what you're doing to some extent. But
So
most
say
people
you
over
don't
focus on
just,
the outer game.
yeah, and
They get
you
lost
also
in it.
don't just sit there and ohm it into
Exactly.
existence, right?
Of
It's
course.
both. Yeah,
Yes.
it's both. Absolutely.
It's the divine masculine and the divine feminine. You need to do
Mhm.
both. Most people in our world, though, vastly underinvest in the inner game. And it's interesting. One of the things I've learned is that we're probably familiar with the seven chakras, the energy centers in the human body, that money and sex both come out of the same chakra, the second chakra, the sacral chakra.
Mhm.
That why is it? Well, money is sexy, isn't it? And the thing you want to recognize is it's not that money itself is sexy. It's that the energy of confidence, worth, and power attracts both. That money is a very feminine energy. And so if we learn how to program our energy, then you win the inner game. Then again, it doesn't matter as much what you do on the outside. It's only temporary. So for example, you want to invest your money. You're like, do I put it in real estate? Do I put it in crypto? Do I put it in stocks? Or do I lock it in a vault? I don't know, right? What do? I would say don't sweat it so much. Don't sweat so much. Why? Which decision you make has very little long-term impact on your prosperity, because ultimately it's governed by you on the inside. And this is so important because when we're so at the effect of the outside, and that's all we see and all we experience, then we're wrecked. We get discouraged, we get down on ourselves, we dig a hole, we just keep manifesting negativity. It's an endless, as they say, a vicious circle. And
So
I want people to know,
we've all been educated. The world
yep,
tells us that it's an outside in game,
that's
but
right.
it's really an inside out game.
Ultimately, yes. And
Yeah.
I mentioned dating because dating is just like money in business. It's about energy, confidence, power, presentation. It's about a subtle web of human connections, isn't it? And that programming inside of you is what influences how people feel about us, how they react to us. It's what we might call luck or presence, synchronicity. So when you're on top of the inner game, you're already living and experiencing as if you are successful and prosperous, so you'll tend to create that. Most of us get stuck in the trap forever of I need money or I want money. and you just keep reinforcing your need for it and taking more and more desperate actions, which is just digging your hole deeper and deeper.
I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
First of all, how long did it take you after that first initial session where you could, your arm cracked and you could feel
Yep.
it, to the point where you got over all the, chronic pain
Yeah.
and
It,
disability and all that stuff?
I wouldn't say it never went away 100%. It
Okay.
got about 80% better.
Okay.
So much more than I ever expected or even thought was possible. But it took me
Did
really
that
about
take?
2, maybe 3 years.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't like there was 1 or 2 sessions where, oh my God, I felt better. I just kept at it, clearing, 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 clearing for years. And then things started to lighten. I started to feel better. I started to exercise again, started working out, started dating, doing more normal things. But yes, it was a process of about 3 years. And there was a lot of time and money spent because I had a lot of bugs in my code. It was that simple. I'd been living life totally backwards, completely from the mind, trying to figure out how to manipulate to make this be this way and make that be that way. And so, and I say that with love, right? But that's what's keeping you stuck, people, is that attitude, that paradigm that you have to figure it out and manipulate it to make it go the way you want.
Absolutely. So then you created this awakening dynamic system. Tell us a little
Yeah,
bit more
it
about
it took
that.
a while, and
Okay.
very short version. When I experienced the first miracle with Terry, I wanted to learn everything she had to teach, and it took me about 3 years. Took dozens of seminars and sessions and practice groups, and it became really good with how to change the subconscious one line of code at a time, which is quite powerful. Very good for health. So I started seeing a lot of healings in terms of people would heal from cancer or chronic pain, migraines, all sorts of different issues, diabetes, people that heal from. But it wasn't doing as much in terms of the inner experience. And that was what I found is the things I learned from Terry were wonderful, life-changing in a lot of ways. And they improved my health and took a lot of the rough edges off. But I was still the same me on the inside. It's just my body didn't hurt as much. I had a little bigger number on my bank account. So again, life-changing, got me off disability, got me to be active, right? Started doing normal things again. But I was still the same me on the inside. And it took me, about almost 7 years to fully go through the process of what they call spiritual awakening. That is a whole nother level of the inner game where you understand that we're not just separate actors manipulating to try to win in some way. Because everyone tends to think in terms of, oh, if I could just have this many prospects or this many sales or this much income or this or that. And that's what I'm saying. That's the trap. You got to program yourself for success and then engage life with a certain joy and childlike presence, letting go of that need to make it be a certain way. And that is really, if I had known that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, would have made a huge difference. That ultimately everything that happens is governed by something on the inside of you. And just like with real computers, it's almost always the software, isn't it? Almost always, huh?
Yeah.
Every now and then, hardware does failure, right? But I've been a tech person since the 80s. Hardware failure is 1 to 2%. 99% of the problem in life is software, and our lives are the same. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with your hardware. You have everything you need to make money, to be happy, to have a meaningful purpose in life, to be confident, feel you're doing something that of value, some version of that. So there's nothing wrong with your hardware. It's all in the software.
For 7 years, you've had this spiritual awakening, and then you created the awakening
I
dynamic
did.
system.
I did
Yeah.
to integrate really the second person, the man I considered my late mentor. His name was Carl Wolf. And he brought a whole nother level to this work I had never seen before. A very visceral, physical aspect of using and feeling in your body to do energy work, which was a wonderful complement to the more mental version of the way most energy healing works. And it took me about 10 years, but I finally kind of cracked the code and go, hey guys, this is the best technology. Why? It's all just technology. Everything is technology. That it's amazing. Just 5 years ago, if you had coding skills, you were almost guaranteed a job for life. Now it's gone. that ChatGPT
To
codes
write the
better than
code
most
for you.
humans. Yes. You can have it write code for you. And if you get
Yep.
errors, you can feed the error prompts back into the AI and it will fix the code. And that's what we need to do here with ourselves. We need to recognize all of us are running buggy code. And we all think, oh, if I just had the big break, if I just got on this show, if I just had this many people on this side or that side, or I lost weight or I was taller, yeah, that's why you're stuck. You just do the best you can based on who you are, what you have to offer, program your software for success, and stop trying to control it so much. Because that, by the way, is why it keeps getting messed up. Then you're operating from what we call the true self. And I created Awakening Dynamics to be a set of simple tools to win the inner game. How do we do this? How do we focus the
It's,
power of our mind? How do we find the subconscious blocks? How do we identify your trauma? How do we understand and work with the archetypal energies that define your whole life? And when we do that, then we start to win the inner game.
I have to ask you another question.
Yeah.
Stop. So a lot of us have heard this before.
Mhm.
It's what I was raised with. It's the only thing I've ever known, frankly. Um, so now I want to dig deeper. What is the formula for miracles? Why does your formula for miracles work? When we all know that things like The Secret, the law of attraction,
Mhm.
all that stuff, so many people have tried it. So many people have tried
Yep.
meditation. So many people have tried a million different methodologies, modalities, practices, whatever. And, it's like half an inch forward, three-quarters of an inch backwards, right? So,
Mhm.
what exactly is this formula for miracles that you've created?
It's really it's a more advanced technology is what it comes down to. That
Explain that.
there's many different processes, approaches, teachers that we can talk about. Oh, good, well-known one would be Tony Robbins. He has his kind of process, positive thinking, mixed in a lot of NLP influences, where he learned to work the subconscious, which is why he became a whole, head and shoulders more powerful and popular than its competitors. He had a little better technology. And ultimately, it's all about working with the brain, understanding where our behaviors come from, working with the energies. The way I would describe it is that, I didn't invent the subconscious or hypnosis or NLP. But what I did was I learned from the masters and then applied what they taught me at MIT and just reverse engineered to figure out how it worked. And then I put it back together in a way to make it better, optimization.
If the old you with all the chronic pain, the 27-year-old you came to you right now, and what would you do? What would you say to that person? What would you do with that person?
I think the most important thing I'd want to get across is stop being so wrapped up in all the things you think you know. That's ultimately what keeps us stuck. That we insist we know this and things are this way and they're this way. And ultimately, it's just a bunch of emotional reasoning. That we ultimately, most of our decisions are guided by really unformed emotional reactions based on things that happened in other times and places that have nothing to do with the moment. And we get kind of carried away in our head of we think we know what's possible and what's not. We think we know that the whole future is going to be just like the past. So maybe, for example, you've done 4 different network marketing products and none of them have succeeded. Does that mean that you'll always fail? That depends on your code, doesn't it? If you let it define you and go, I'm always going to fail and get into that mindset, you're just going to create that. So
But
there's all these
saying that,
technologies. What I offer is I think it's faster, more powerful, more easily measured. So it's, will everyone have 100% success? No, that's a lie. There's nothing that's 100%. But many
you're
people, I think on average, will move forward a lot more, a lot faster and more measurably.
your 27-year-old self comes to you and you'd say, well, just stop believing everything you believe and,
Yeah.
start being open. Well, that's not going to do diddly squat. You and I know
No,
that. Saying that to that
no,
person is not going to do diddly squat.
no.
So I'm struggling so far, I agree with everything you've said. It was the way I was
Hmm.
raised.
Yep.
But I'm struggling to understand, and I want our listeners to understand, because I so believe in everything you've said. And I'm passionate about helping people have transformation and really change
Yep.
their lives and really have success when they've never had success, or really find peace when they've never had peace, or really find health when they've never
Yep.
had health. So I'm struggling to understand, and I want you to explain to me and to our listeners and viewers, what are they going to get when they come to you for help that they haven't gotten from Tony Robbins and from Marianne Williamson and from every Joe Dispenza and
Sure.
every other person out there who they've followed here and there and read this
Hmm.
book and watched that video and taken this course? What, like, help me understand.
I work in a very different way. You're never going
Okay.
to find me in a seminar with 1,000 people like Tony Robbins, or
Okay.
even hundreds like someone like Joe Dispenza. The
Okay.
technology I apply really only delivers the big results done in small groups of people that are trained, is the way it works best. And my goal for everyone that comes to me is, hey, I'm going to lay down the fast track to get to where you want. I can get you faster than previous generations of this technology. Why? All these optimizations. It'd be like saying, okay, how long does it take to get from San Francisco to Tokyo? Well, that depends. What year are we living in? If it's, 1750, you can do it on a sailing ship, but it's what, a 6-month journey? Doable. 4 months, huge, right? If you're on the Concorde, 6 hours. So it was, what will you experience in terms of moving forward? I can move you there faster than other things. Doesn't mean there won't be a process.
What am I going to do? Am I going to sit around and meditate? Are you going to hook up nodes to my brain?
Now,
Like,
we could, most of what we do is either what we call one-on-one digging, where I
okay,
work with people one at a time, in a private session, and you
okay.
tell me what's going on in your life, and reverse engineer and find where's the bugs in your code. How and why are you creating this? And how do we change the code? That would be sort of the introduction level for most people, that most people are ready to start with pretty quickly. There are more
How do you change the code?
uh, short version that there is a whole technology to it. You need to entrain yourself into a theta brain state. Then you have to ground to the earth, transcend through the heavens. So whatever, however you want to call that duality, sky and earth, male, female, father, mother, and then connect with your client's energy. And with their permission, you can learn a way to witness the shifts in the code. Similar to the way you would, change the channel on your TV with a remote control.
So you're doing the work. Let's
Yes.
say I come to you and
Hmm.
I'm a network marketer, I'm stuck, blah, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. I come to you and I really want to crack this code on
Yep.
my financial thermostat that has been stuck here forever. You're going to do the work. Is
Well,
that right?
there's three paths to it.
Okay.
Like in life, there's always a time money trade-off and some kind of make or buy trade-off. That's always how life works. So most people start with some amount of self-study and working with me or another one of my trained practitioners one-on-one to get you started into working the subconscious. But that's just the entry level. There's multiple levels past that. At some point, you will learn a form of open eye meditation called beaming, designed to synchronize the brain waves and lower your frequency. But it's not where you're going to start out of the gate.
Okay.
But we have different levels, just like if you said, hey, Brent, I want to learn to get around town faster. Well, first we walk, then maybe you ride a bike or you take a skateboard, then you get a car, maybe even get a helicopter. So there's more than one tool. And there's kind of a curve to it that some people just want to have the work done on them, and that's fine. That's going to cost more because you need professionals to do the work with you. There is no, like, it's like going on a diet. You can't pay someone to go on a diet for you, can you? So there is no answer here where you have no part of it. I wish, right? Or I could just sell enlightenment PDFs on my website and retire tomorrow. So we got to do the work. Some people don't want to put a lot of time into learning it, which is fine. It just will cost you more money because you're hiring professionals to do it for you. Other people are like, hey, I have the time. I just don't want to spend a lot of money. Well, I'll give you the training materials to learn how to do this, to learn how to do all these things, get to the theta brainwave, identify the blocks, do the clearing. At the higher levels, it's a much more physical process of learning to do special movements, to feel how you move and how the energies of your body display. Because ultimately, this is what influences the people around us. It's not just your brochure, it's also the energy that you put into it as you created it. This is why certain things you see draw your eye, a picture, an ad, a person. Other things, you look right at it and don't see it. It's all in the subconscious. So it would be a combination of, there is some self-study, of course, learn new ways to think about things, that the way life really works is a lot different than what we thought. So there is a self-study portion. There's a portion we do live one-on-one, and there's a portion we do live in small groups. And put it all together, it's all more working with the subconscious, shifting out of that very ego-centered paradigm our world thrives in, but is actually really bad for us. Because the change ultimately always starts on the inside. So, we show you how to make the change on the inside and how to feel it and notice the difference. That's why we all need a little training. A lot of us don't know how to do that.
For the average person, how long might it take them working with you to actually experience some kind of transformation?
I would say most people experience something within the first few weeks, but it's not 100%.
Okay.
Typically, I like to work with people 12 to 18 months to get the highest level of results. Why? There's a big paradigm shift to take. To let go of the old idea of a separate being, and we're all these beings with consciousness and interacting. Yeah, it's very difficult to get past. There's an old Zen joke that goes something like this: fish don't know they live in water. And that's the thing with humans. We don't realize we're living in the ego and the mind because it's all we know. We don't even see it. So the fish, they've been breathing, swimming in water their whole lives. They don't even notice it. We got to train you to start to notice it and to start debugging the code. Though some people see life-changing experiences in the first few weeks, but don't bank on it. That's not typical. Most people takes about a year to a year and a half to wake up spiritually. It just takes time to get your head around it. I can tell you the secret right now. It's simple. You're not a noun, you're a verb. But everyone goes, what does that mean? Exactly. That's why it takes time. That's why there's self-study, Q&A sessions, one-on-ones. That my goal is to get you to master that inner game as quickly, as easily, as effortlessly as we can. And once you've experienced what happens when you do that, I don't think you'll ever want to go back to living the other way. I mean, you could. I wouldn't.
For our viewers and listeners who want to find out more about you and they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. Anyone that really wants to explore the subject of the inner game, first place to stop is my website at awakeningdynamics.com.
Okay.
And there's a link to my,
Awakeningdynamics.com.
yep,
Mhm.
there's a link to my YouTube channel. So if you're the kick the tire kind of person, you want to go spend a couple hundred hours watching videos, go crazy. So I got you covered. For anyone that's really wants to start delving deep and getting results right away. And again, I'll ask only take advantage of this if you're serious about you want to go deep. On my webpage, you'll also see a big arrow to book a time for me. That I will talk to almost anyone for 20 minutes for free to get a sense of who you are and what your goals are, and to let you know, frankly, if I think I'm a good fit for you. Because I don't want to work with people that aren't going to get the good results. I only want to,
Total sense.
if I'm going to spend my time, my energy, my community, I want to make sure that we have a good success rate. Not everyone gets everything they want right away. But really, ultimately, the question isn't whether or not you can get to where you want to be. For some people, that's their body and their health. For others, it's a monetary goal of a certain income level or wealth or living in a certain place. That my goal is to give you the right tool to move forward. And I'd say I only accept about half the people I talk to because not everyone's a good fit. If I'm not the right fit for you, I will do my best to give you a recommendation as to what I think a better next step would be for you.
fantastic. Brent, thank you so much. And for those of you who are interested, again, it's awakeningdynamics.com. Thanks so much. Really great to have you here.
Thank you.